something is in the water this Premier League season, because tell me why all these clubs making big moves in the transfer window, Man United with Santos and Tielemans, Tottenham with their shiny new midfield and defense, tell me why for some of these clubs, it looks like their season is already over, and we're just 1 week in. Stick around because we'll get into all of that, but first things first, we start with the very beginning of the Premier League season, where things start out pretty normal, because on Friday night, Arsenal got their pretty standard 3-0 victory against the newly promoted Coventry side, and it was a pretty dominant match from minute one. While other major sides were struggling to get their engines on, struggling to adapt to their new tactical systems, their new players, Arsenal, right from the get-go, they looked the better team throughout that entire match. Even with Saliba injured, Mosquera did not really look out of place in that back line. Even with Fury and Timber out, Ben White filled in quite nicely. You had Calafiori being pretty important as well as that vertical left back. And this Arsenal side, from the very beginning, they were clearly the better side. But the first player who really stood out in this match, in my opinion, by far the man of the match, despite not getting an actual goal, is got to be Solis. Because not only did he look amazing in preseason, and I said this at the time, it's only preseason, not only did he look amazing in the Community Shield, which again, I said it's only the Community Shield, now, yet again, he has an amazing performance in the very first match of the Premier League. And again, I have to hedge this, I have to say it's still early days, but every sign I can possibly see from this Solis guy, he looks amazing. First goal, he is able to essentially press Van Uyck, force a giveaway, allowing him to set up a pass to Calafiori, who eventually passed it to Havertz for that first Arsenal goal. Then later on, he is making a beautiful cross into the box. Carl Rushworth is able to tip it slightly, not enough to really stop the possession, and so he doesn't get the assist. He's not credited with it, but we all know that it is Solis who creates that second goal. And also, outside of those two goals, he was that sort of 1v1 duel maker, that presence on the left side of the pitch that Arsenal were sorely missing in the last few seasons with Gabriel Martinelli, with, Trossard as well in the past. Martinelli was a faster player than Solis is right now, but neither him nor Trossard had the sort of secondary direct threat that Saka would provide on the right side by making these one-on-one duels, trying to cut it inside, and be a menace on his own. And now that Arsenal's going to have two wingers that can do this, it's going to make things a lot more difficult for opposition defenses. In about the first 10 or so minutes, Solis already on multiple occasions, I think twice in the first 10 minutes, cuts him behind, beats his fullback, and is able to get a shot off, although he isn't able to score from any of those chances. And that is what you want to see if you're an Arsenal fan. These are certainly encouraging signs moving forward for your front three. Obviously, the entire front three was quite solid. Havertz with a nice goal. Odegaard scoring as well. Bukayo Saka, of course, with his tap-in, although he, I think, was pretty solid throughout this match in general. And I would even say in the midfield, Arsenal were looking quite solid as well. Bruno G was the big transfer of the window for Arsenal so far, who was supposed to strengthen their midfield. And even with him being injured, Arsenal's midfield looked very solid in this match. I think even when he comes back, with the performance that Miles Lewis-Skelly was having in this match, he is going to be making a real push for staying in that starting 11. Because he had very good defensive solidity, and when he was on the ball, he was absolutely everywhere throughout the match. He was joint most for touches in this match, and he was essentially unpressable. Coventry's midfield would press Miles Lewis-Skelly whenever he got the ball, and he would just go off of them. He would just go off the midfielders, go off the defenders, like they weren't there. Coventry right now have one of the players with the most stamina in the entire Premier League. Caleb Uranki, I have talked about him multiple times already. I think he will be a class player for them. But even when he was pressing Miles Lewis-Skelly, it was as if the man was just not there at all. It was as if he was being, pressed by a ghost, because they could do no effect on Lewis-Skelly. Declan Rice, pretty solid as well. And even Martin Odegaard, I would say, is really coming back into form. At the end of last season, I would say he really started to pick up form. He really started to show shades of what he was at his peak about 3 years ago. And we're seeing that as well, I would say. Now, 2 goals in 2 games, scoring in the Community Shield and scoring here, although this goal was largely due to a Carl Rushworth mistake, if we're being quite honest. And so he might be coming back into form, and if he is, that is going to be as well a huge benefit for this Arsenal side. Now, a few things on Coventry before we move on. I would say that, first off, on Carl Rushworth, yes, it is absolutely his fault for that third goal especially, but I am not going to be too stuck down on him. Because, yes, that should not have gone in, that third goal, but he also did make a couple of good saves, and I think he honestly prevented the scoreline from being even worse, because if it were not for him in net, I think Arsenal easily could have won this 4-0, 5-0, and so it wasn't the most amazing goalkeeper performance by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it was too bad either, and personally, I'm not going to lower my sort of stock on Rushworth, at least for now. And also on Coventry, look, they were outclassed in the defense. They were outclassed in the midfield. These were to be expected, but I do think what was a little bit shocking was just how bad that front three was for Coventry. Now, there are a lot of asterisks that need to be placed with that statement, and if you are a Sky Blue, I wouldn't be too concerned with this match, because not only are you playing the league champions in their stadium, but also you are dealing with these injuries, right? Efron Mason-Clark not back yet, Haji Wright not back yet, Tayo Awoni, who did not start in this match, it was Ellis Sims who was starting at striker, probably will be getting more minutes moving forward. Actually, as I'm recording right now, the EFL Cup is being played, and I did see that Tayo Awoni did start for Coventry, and he scored a goal in the first 3 minutes. So that is an encouraging sign. We'll see if Coventry fixes soon, and we'll see if, as we integrate these sort of new players into the squad, I'm not a Coventry fan, as Coventry integrates these players into the squad, as these sort of injured players come back, we'll see if Coventry do end up doing better. And I'm still holding stock in them. I did say at the start of the season that I don't think they'll go down, and, Arsenal is such a good squad that even though they did get absolutely dominated here, I'm still not going to put too much of a weight on this performance. But moving on to the Saturday matches, this is where it gets a little bit dark. Because on Saturday, Hull hosting Manchester United, hosting the Red Devils, 2 set pieces, 2 Hull City goals. Man United, you have been mauled by the Tigers. Because, oh man, what a performance. What a performance both ways, because very good from Hull, I would say. Lots of positives. They absolutely deserve this win here. And Man United, that was shocking. That was terribly bad. First off, there have already been a lot of memes about that performance from the back line by Manchester United on that first corner where Maguire is marking, holding on to Mbeumo. If that's Maguire holding on to Ollie McBurnley like that, if that's Maguire holding on to any Hull player in a situation like that, that's going to be a yellow card. That's a foul. That's a penalty. But instead, he's doing that. He's hugging his own teammate and clearing the path for Sami Ajayi to just tap in a goal after Ollie McBurnley takes a shot from the far edge. It's actually pretty well saved by Senne Lammens, but he's not able to clear the ball fully. So horrific there defensively from the first goal. And then later on, it is Nobel Mendy who scores off the second set piece. Nobody's really marking him. Free header for him. And very well finished. Now, a few things to say. First off, do not blame Senne Lammens for this performance. He does let in 2 goals, but as crazy as this is to say about a team that not only just got newly promoted, but did so through the championship, but if it were not for Senne Lammens, this could have been even worse, man. Early on, I think this was maybe the 12th or 13th minute, Ryan Giles, somebody who I said could be pretty important for Hull this season, puts in a cross for Ollie McBurnley, and he forces an excellent Lamont save. Also, Man United do get a few chances of their own. There was one point in about the 12th minute, Luke Shaw puts in a cross of his own into the box. Nobel Mendy. By the way, Nobel Mendy had a very good performance overall. I don't know what the hell was going through his mind in that moment, because Nobel Mendy, instead of heading the ball, instead of clearing it away, if he just stands there, he probably clears it away, but he ducks. He ducks to allow the ball to go into Mbeumo and forces Salakis to make a huge save for Hull early on. Now, I don't want to crap on Nobel Mendy too much, because from that point forward, he was good in the back line. He obviously scores that second goal for Hull, and he does go down injured. He has to get subbed off in the 64th minute for Lucas Harrington, though it doesn't seem like it is too bad of an injury, so nothing too big to be worried about. And yeah, I mean, very good defensive performance from Hull overall, aside from that one very, very weird defensive decision made by Nobel Mendy, I have to say. There were 3 backline injuries that Hull picked up in this match. As I just said, it is Nobel Mendy, who was subbed off for the Aussie youngster Lucas Harrington. You also have Louis Kowi and Semi Ajayi, who came off injured in this match. But based on what Djokovic was saying after the match ended, it seems like other than Semi Ajayi, these were relatively minor knocks. We should be seeing Kowi and Nobel Mendy most likely back, if not playing full matches for the next Premier League match, probably still getting a few minutes. So nothing too big to worry about, I would say, overall, if you are a Hull fan with these injuries, but just relatively minor knocks that I will be monitoring over the next few days and updating in future videos, just to see what happens with these minor injuries for the Hull City backline. But yeah, as I said, completely deserved for Hull, I would say. And as for Man United, that midfield pairing, I am not feeling good about it at all. That double pivot of Yuri Tielemans, of Andre Santos. I mean, when we did, me and my co-host Swapnil, when we did our full Man United season preview, we said that Tielemans and Santos, both good signings, but they shouldn't be playing together. Because both of them are ball progression first defensive midfielders. They do it in different ways, but Yuri Tielemans, somebody who can make these long balls, brilliant crosses, brilliant ways to, bypass the opposition midfield and get it to the front 3. Then you have Andre Santo, who is more of a ball-playing, short-passing, dribbling sort of midfielder. But while it's ball progression in different ways, they're both ball progressors, and neither of them are really defensive or ball-winning midfielders first. This is why I thought that, assuming no other midfield signings would be made, that I would have rather seen Kobe Mainoo as one of those midfielders alongside be it Tielemans, be it Santos, especially now that, Casemiro's gone. You're not really getting his defensive stability. Kobe Mainoo, if he's not in the starting lineup, is obviously not going to provide that stability either. And to be quite honest, I do think that Michael Carrick did get his formation wrong. Or not his formation, but he did get his starting lineup wrong with playing both of them at the same time. Now, nothing too dire if you are a Red Devil fan in this case, because you guys are also signing Carlos Baleba. Baleba, somebody being more of a physical midfielder, a holding midfielder who is going to be a better ball winner. So I think with him in the midfield, a lot of those issues will be fixed. But with the Tielemans and Santos midfield pairing, Hull really were allowed to dictate the midfield. I mean, they obviously had very little possession, under 30%, I believe it was. But when they were on the ball, that Hull City midfield, that attack, that transition threat was quite solid. You saw Ollie McBurnley, somebody who is primarily a traditional number 9. Also, I think, being very important for Hull City, dropping deep, being an anchor in open play, and the Man United midfield were just not able to touch him whatsoever. Again, Tielemans Santos were not able to hold a candle to Ollie McBurnley when he was being that physical presence. And even when the backline tried to pitch in, I mean, Aiden Heaven looked really poor against Ollie McBurnley, in my opinion. And when he is allowed to drop deep, when he is allowed to be this link-up player, this anchor, it just unlocks the rest of Hull's attack, doesn't it? Because now you have Matt Crooks absolutely everywhere in that midfield. You have a hugely pacey player in Mohamed Belloumi, who was, I think, pretty solid at times as well for this match. And then you're looking at Elliot Stroud. Elliot Stroud, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce him. But he, I think, was actually pretty solid in the left-wing role. And as much as it pains me to say this as a Canadian, I think I would rather have him starting than Liam Miller, to be quite honest, in the future. He doesn't have the same pace that Liam Miller does, but he contributes more defensively, which is going to be pretty important, especially with how high up their wingback and Ryan Giles likes to be. And I do think that with that increased defensive solidity that Hull really need, especially as a newly promoted side, it was evident how much that really helped them in this match. So yeah, I mean, you basically saw Ollie McBurnley being that anchor, him passing the ball to the midfield, to the midfielders and the wingers, and it made them quite the threat in transition. A threat that, while they weren't able to score in open play, I think really did have to threaten Man United at times. And again, Sani Lamins making a few crucial saves there where, were it not for him, Hull easily could have scored a few goals from open play. So pretty encouraging, I would say, overall, if you are a Hull fan. And finally, as for United's attack, not good. Not good at all. Patrick Dorgu had a stinker today. He got subbed off right at halftime. for Marcus Rashford, which was probably the right decision. And honestly, based on the way those two played, I think I might rather have Marcus Rashford starting over Patrick Dorgu moving forward, which is an insane thing, honestly, to be saying in the Big 26. But what concerns me more so about this is the fact that Man United still don't really seem to have a backup plan as soon as one of their starters gets injured. Ahmed Diallo is going to be out for a few weeks. He wasn't able to play in this match. And so you had Cunha out of position as a striker. You had to end up playing Patrick Dorgu as a left winger. And what ended up happening was it felt that as soon as one of these guys goes out, there aren't really good replacements for them. And all the chemistry that Man United's front three or front four was sort of building at the back end of last season, that's all gone out the window as soon as a single player gets injured. And again, when we were talking about Man United and sort of previewing their season as a whole, I said it was very important. They have to go and sign another right winger. They have no depth in that position right now. And if you think this is bad, one loss, Amad Diallo, forcing this United team to play out of position, just think about what's going to happen as the season goes on, as they pick up more injuries, and as they have to start playing in the Champions League. Again, this is why you need depth if you want to compete on all fronts. And I hope this is a warning sign for Man United fans. I hope this is your warning sign, because this is the physical evidence is being shown to you. This is what can happen to your attack as soon as one of your starters goes out. What does that say about your future? But yeah, pretty bad performance overall from Man United, and clearly some important weaknesses that some of which are being filled. Carlos Baleba again coming into the squad, but some of which still needing to be fixed as the season goes on for Man United. But later on Saturday, if you thought that was a bad performance with Man United losing to Hull, what might have been even more embarrassing, what was certainly at least worse as a performance, was Tottenham getting cooked 3-0 in the GTAC. Absolutely embarrassing, shambolic performance. And I have to start with some of the standouts, or should I say sit-outs? I don't know. Some of the horrific performances that certain Tottenham players had. Because, first off, Exhibit A, you have Lucas Bergvall, who is just entirely on another planet in this match. I swear, in the first 20 minutes or so, 20-25 minutes, he was stripped 3 times deep in his own half. He was dribbling without a care in the world. 2 Brentford players would press him, and he would just play with no urgency whatsoever, and he would end up giving these free transition chances to the Brentford side as a result. It was absolutely shambolic. I saw a lot of Tonali hate, Tonali being in the double pivot with Lucas Bergvall, and I do think that, yes, Tonali did not have a particularly good game. He provided absolutely nothing offensively. I actually think that compared to some of the other stinkers the Tottenham players had today, I actually think that, relatively speaking, Sandro Tonali was alright. And at least he didn't give chances. At least he wasn't actively sabotaging the De Zerbi effort the way that certain others, like Lucas Bergvall, were in this match. So not great, not a great debut by any stretch of the imagination, but also, honestly, far from their worst player, if I'm being completely honest, with Sandro Tonali. And as for Brentford, very, very well executed, tactically speaking, by Keith Andrews. That 4-4-2 sort of narrow, low block that Brentford had out of possession, forcing Tottenham to play through long balls and through the fullbacks, because they clogged the midfield line and they forced Tottenham to get it to the wingers, or to the wingbacks rather. You saw Andy Robertson being one of them, and very, very strange decision. I'll talk about this more in a little bit. But for whatever reason, De Zerbi does not start Destiny Udogie. Instead, he starts Archie Gray yet again at right back. We're still doing this Archie Gray right back gimmick in the 26-27 season with Roberto De Zerbi. And what this functionally means is that they have basically 2 ways to progress the ball in the first half. It's either Kinski tries to lob it long to somebody in the front 3, and frankly, that front 3, with all those injuries, they were getting killed by the Brentford backline whenever Kinski tried to lob it long and see if Richarlison or whoever it was could win that first ball. And then that meant that the only viable strategy to progress the ball for Tottenham was get it to the fullbacks. And again, Archie Gray, out of position, means that it's Andy Robertson, who is pretty much that lone player in the first phase of play, who's going to try to get it out to the midfielders and try to progress the ball. And he dropped an absolute stinker himself. He was pretty terrible on the ball. I think he actually got better as the match went on, but not good by any stretch of the imagination. Van Hecke as well, I think, doing too much on the ball at times in that first phase. And even Kinski, who I did rate highly at the end of last season, I think he was instrumental to Tottenham staying up last season, he had a stinker as well in this first match. Easily 2 of those goals he parries away if, he saves them, if he doesn't pass them basically straight back to Brentford attackers. That could be 2 goals that are erased by Brentford, because Brentford were actually pretty wasteful with their chances in this match. And Kinski, if he just did better, maybe it's not as embarrassing of a scoreline at the end of the day for Tottenham. But yeah, complete disaster all throughout the back line for Tottenham. I really don't have much positive to say about the front 6, at least in the first half. And I will just say, I think De Zerbi got his lineup wrong to talk about the Archie Gray situation. It makes no sense to play Archie Gray and Andy Robertson as your fullbacks when you know that your opponent, Brentford, are a team that plays for the counter. They have some of the fastest wingers in the entire league in Dango Ouattara, in Kevin Schade, and yet you insist on playing Archie Gray and Andy Robertson as the fullbacks. Even Van Hecke was struggling out there. Honestly, if I were De Zerbi, I might have subbed him out for the more pacey Kevin Danso in the backline as well. Destiny Udogie, who is probably their fastest defender, he didn't come on until about the 76th minute, and I have no idea why. He just didn't start. You easily could have just started Destiny Udogie and Andy Robertson instead, but you want to play, for whatever reason, Archie Gray at right back. And every time Tottenham have done this over the past year, Archie Gray has never looked good at right back. I don't know why they keep trying to force it onto him. It's just not working. There's no world where Archie Gray should be starting at right back. I don't care if Pedro Porro is out. It just makes no sense for them, tactically speaking. And I mean, they paid the price, because by the time it was halftime, yes, Zerbi does make some good substitutions. I like the fact that we saw a few players who I think will probably be pushing for starting lineup positions as we go on with the season. Mateus Fernandes coming back from injury, James Maddison, Dominic Solanke. I believe it was Bentancur who I think came on for Lucas Bergvall, if I remember correctly as well. So hopefully it will be better for Tottenham moving forward. But yeah, by then it was just way too late. It was way too late, and this was all Brentford, the entire match. The second half may be a little bit better for Tottenham. Mikey Moore gets actually 3 great chances at the right edge of the box where he's unmarked, 3 chances to shoot it, and he doesn't score once. He easily could have a hat trick. I mean, I'm not expecting him to score all 3 of those chances, but to not even score one, I think that's pretty bad. He shot a couple of them just straight at Kelleher. Terrible finishing. And other than that, I mean, Tottenham really generated nothing offensively. Again, they were lucky that Brentford didn't take their chances better. Brentford had 3.9 XG in this match, which, by the way, I don't care if you're away. It is horrific to be conceding 3.9 XG against any team in the Premier League. Igor Thiago misses a penalty. There were a couple chances where I think Igor Thiago was not very good. Igor Thiago, I would say, was one of their 2 worst players for Brentford. The other one also being Dango Ouattara, who multiple times in the first half, he gets a chance in the box, but then he takes a few touches too many. There was one around the 30 or 35th minute, so to speak, I think, where Keane Lewis-Potter puts in a beautiful ball into the center of the box for Dango Ouattara. If he shoots the first time, it's a great chance, but he ends up taking a few too many touches, and it just allows Andy Robertson to have that extra second to close him down, and it kills off the opportunity. So, honestly, I think Brentford, their whole team was very good, but if their front 3 was better, this could have been even more goals. After like the 60th minute or so, it was complete cruise control for Brentford, but Tottenham should feel lucky that they only conceded 3 goals when Brentford was just this dominant. And I think one other player I absolutely have to mention for Brentford is going to be Mamadou Sangare, the player of the match. I would say I think he was their joint best player with Keane Lewis-Potter. He was absolutely amazing. In the first 15 minutes, he was just absolutely everywhere in the midfield. Always finding these little pockets of space, making these little turns, brilliant passes to progress the ball quickly in Brentford, which, again, the name of the game for this Brentford tactical style is progress the ball quickly, catch the opponent off guard, and he was excellent for that. It was as if he was part of the midfield for years already, and it wasn't his first competitive match for Brentford. Now, I do think after he gets his first assist, he does become a little bit worse if he starts forcing a few passes, making a few sort of fancy plays, which he doesn't really need to. But overall, a very good performance for Brentford. And you have to think that with time, he's only going to get better for this Brentford front 3. So overall, this is a very, very encouraging performance if you are a Brentford fan. But moving on to the Sunday matches here, now we have our Big 6 teams starting to come back into control here with Manchester City barely, honestly at the death, I would say, eking out, smash and grabbing a 2-1 win against the Cherries at home at the Etihad. Now, a few things to note. This is, of course, Enzo Maresca's first Premier League match managing Man City, and there are a lot of insights to be had based on how he was performing, based on how he had this Man City team setting up. Quite a few, let's say, surprising things that we've already seen from Enzo Maresca tactically, but I don't hate all of them, to be quite honest. His system is always going to be one fullback high up, one joining into the back three. And so what ends up happening is you end up getting a lot of the time center backs playing roles outside of center back. Like, for example, it was Kusanov playing right back in the Community Shield. This time we saw, I believe it was Gvardiol playing at left back. And then you had Gehi playing as a defensive midfielder. But honestly, given the sort of system that Maresca wants to play, I don't think these are necessarily bad ideas. Like, because obviously, like, Kusanov is not going to be your traditional right back. Gvardiol's not going to be your traditional left back, and Gehi's not going to be your traditional defensive midfielder. But consider the roles that Enzo Maresca wants them to play, right? For example, that back three is there to provide solidity in the transition when the other team is trying to press you, when the other team wins the ball from you and is trying to create a counterattack. You have Gehi there, who is basically there only to be that reliable transition defender to pair with Elliot Anderson, who will have more creativity, who will have more freedom as a sort of all-purpose midfielder. And I think if that's the role you want to play Gehi in, I don't hate him at CDM. And to be quite honest, I think he was quite solid in that role. I think he had a pretty good performance. And of the two players in the double pivot, I would say it was actually Gehi who performed better than Elliot Anderson. Elliot Anderson, to be quite honest, I wouldn't say he was bad, but we're not really seeing the 100 and whatever pound transfer that he has. He's not really showing that level of quality yet. I don't think he was great in the Community Shield. I don't think he was great here either. And yes, I understand it's early days, give him time, but I'm not feeling too confident, to be quite honest, about this Man City midfield. It doesn't seem like they're finding a very good pairing for however they want to play him. They did just sign Bouadi, the Moroccan wonder kid, who maybe he'll help fix some of these issues in the Man City midfield. But as for now, I think that is still a big question mark for Man City moving forward. I don't know if I just said Man United there by accident, but obviously I'm talking about Man City here. Speaking of the Enzo Maresca system, though, this is no surprise, but whenever they do lose the ball, having that basically back three system does create problems in transition. And we saw that on multiple occasions. This is what causes when your players are so high up, when somebody like Rico Lewis is so high up. This is what causes the transition threats, and especially those open spaces for the wingers for Bournemouth. That first goal, for example, great hold-up play by Ryan, and then you end up getting Evan Nielsen on the right side and Tavernier on the left side, both being unmarked at the same time, and it just leads to this routine finish for Bournemouth to take the lead in the 26th minute. Then this happens again. Ryan this time on the right side, Clivert on the left side, and Donnarumma has to make a crucial save early on in order to prevent that from being even worse. Then around the 83rd minute, I think it was, a set-piece chance that Bournemouth gets. It's the substitute, the Canadian striker Daniel Jebbison, who gets a great shot on target. And yet again, it is Donnarumma who has to make an important save to stop that from being 2-0 and stop the game from being too far gone for Man City late on in the second half. So there are some positive signs, offensively speaking, for Man City, but defensively, it's not looking good. But the best offensive sign, though, is definitely going to be Ryan Cherki. Again, when we were talking about Man City, when we were doing the Man City full season preview, I said that I think Cherki has to start every match. He's so important for them. He's such an amazing playmaker. Maybe the best playmaker in the Premier League outside of Bruno Fernandes right now. And whether it's Phil Foden, whether it's Nico O'Reilly, nobody can hold up a candle to Cherki in the midfield. He saves the 3 points for City here with his playmaking. He gets 2 amazing assists. Easily could have been more if Semenyo, takes his chances better. And it's just absolute brilliance from Cherki. This is class playing by the young French midfielder. For the first goal, it is a corner kick. He picks a brilliant delivery, gets it straight to Marc Guéhi, and then laid on, right? There are 3 players pressing him at once. He does very well to sort of shrug them off, and then plays this brilliant pinpoint pass to Gvardiol for the stoppage time game winner for Manchester City. But while Cherki was great, the front 3 was not at all. Haaland was getting almost no service. He basically only got 2 chances this whole match, one of which was a brilliant header saved by Petrovic, and the other one being a pretty poorly taken chance by Erling Haaland late on in the second half, which could have been that first goal for Man City. Phil Foden, pretty terrible. I do not think he should be starting. I've said this many times already, and I don't think this is a controversial opinion. Antoine Semenyo, I said I don't think he's going to fit Enzo Maresca's system very well, and I think we saw that here today. He was pretty terrible himself, and it was basically all Turkey. It was the Turkey show that won them the match today. I do think Holland's going to get better, but you need to feed the man, and they're just not doing that right now. So it's quite suspect. It is quite suspect for Man City. Maybe they'll get this sorted out as the season goes on, but as of right now, a lot of question marks throughout that starting 11 for Man City, if we're being quite honest. But before I move on, obviously I want to talk about Bournemouth as well, and I have sort of two main takeaways outside of the counter-attacking threat that Bournemouth had, which we've already known about. I've said this many times. Ryan, Tavernier, Evan Nielsen, a lot of pace there, a lot of link of play, a lot of dynamism, and that was on full display in this match here today. But the two other sort of takeaways I have on Bournemouth, one would be, I was pretty surprised with how good their midfield is. And it's not a diss on Bournemouth's midfield, but you have to remember, Tyler Adams was not fully fit coming to this match. He only played about 20 minutes or so. Ryan Christie was suspended. And so when we were previewing this match, I thought City was going to win this by 2 goals because it would dominate the midfield more. But even with Lewis Cook in there as that sort of box-to-box midfielder, I think he actually did surprisingly well. Lewis Cook as the holy midfielder, he did pretty well. I think he actually contained Elliot Anderson to a pretty surprising extent. You had Alex Scott have another sort of very solid performance as well, so good on him. And I think, if you're a Bournemouth fan, if you're a Cherry, there's a lot to be optimistic about with this midfield, especially with Tyler Adams probably going to be playing more minutes as we go on, because he is still coming back from that injury. When Ryan Christie comes back from injury, that's also going to be potentially a good sign for Bournemouth as well. So all of that is pretty good. But the one thing that obviously cost them, it has been a long-time issue for Bournemouth, something we've talked about before. It is the issue with dealing with set pieces that Bournemouth have. Whether it was James Hill or Antonio Silva, who should have been guarding Gahey for that first goal, absolutely this defensive breakdown leads to that first chance. And I can't even say that they were unlucky, because there were a few other corners that City had where they create good chances because of Bournemouth's lack of set-piece defending capacity. And honestly, they got away with a few early on in that match. So it's quite unfortunate. I think if they defended these set pieces better, they probably could have walked away with the 3 points themselves, because if it weren't for that Gahey goal, I honestly don't see how City were scoring in this match. Again, very solid defensive effort outside of the set pieces, very solid midfield effort. So again, there's still a lot to be sort of proud of if you are a Bournemouth fan. But at the same time, I can't help but imagine that if you are a Bournemouth fan, you're going to be feeling really bad about this, because if you just tighten that set piece defending a little bit more, you easily could have walked away with all 3 points that the Etihad, which would have been historic for Bournemouth. But alas, it is not to be. I think that this team will still be very solid this season. I think they're going to do better against some easier opponents. But yeah, it really sucks if you are a Bournemouth fan to have not at least gotten a point from this match where, for the most part, it was very well played by the Cherries. But anyways, later on today, we had another huge Sunday matchup. It was Newcastle taking on Liverpool. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say with this match. Starting with a massive, I told you so. I told you so. Because all of you, everybody, including my co-host Swapnil, which, with all love and respect to you, your team played like absolute dog shit today. I told y'all, this Newcastle side is not to be underestimated. To everybody who is saying Newcastle's going to have a massive downgrade this season, with a new manager, with all these players leaving, that they might be in a relegation battle. Certain people are even saying that they might go down this season. Listen, sit down, shut up. Because that was a brilliant performance by Newcastle. And while I was wrong as well, I thought Newcastle was going to win this 2-1. I was almost correct, Newcastle were the better team in this match, and it was only a last-minute Szoboszlai pen that saves a point for Liverpool. I was this close to being perfect. And Newcastle really were impressive, and I think that this match might be putting some of y'all on game, letting you know that, yes, this is maybe not the same flashy team from a few seasons ago, but the Geordies are far from dead. And they could still make a European push this season. I had them finishing top half of the table, which would be an improvement over last season, and I'm feeling quite good about that right about now after this performance. One player who I said would be a resurgent player for Newcastle this season, someone who I thought could have a breakout season, was Anthony Elanga. And I think he absolutely showed that today. Basically, my thesis is that under Yasla's system, where Anthony Elanga is allowed to be more of a wider, direct winger threat, he could do better, and he absolutely did today, right? I mean, 5 minutes in, Asula puts a pass in behind for him. He absolutely outpaces Milos Kerkez and just slots that goal in very, very cleanly. I think he was pretty solid all throughout that match. Lucas Hornacek as well, somebody who many people said was going to be a downgrade for Newcastle. I mean, first off, I think that's incredibly disrespectful. This is undefeated Bundesliga with Bayern Leverkusen winning Lucas Hornacek first off that we're talking about in net. And he was class in this match as well. Made a big save from Wirtz early on. I think he was pretty solid overall, making just nothing too flashy. He didn't have to do anything too important, but, being that good presence, being reliable with crosses, dealing with all of those, pretty solid for him as well. And as for Liverpool, Harvey Barnes, I think, was okay. Again, Anthony Elanga being very good. A lot of this also has to come down to Kerkez and Frimpong, two wingbacks who I said was going to struggle in this match. And we really saw that. It was somehow worse than they thought. Jacquet, yes, it is his debut for Liverpool, so I don't want to clown him too much, but he wasn't very good either. Szoboszlai and Grav, really, really poor, I would say. I know Szoboszlai does get that amazing penalty. It's a great penalty, to be fair. Very, very well placed. But defensively, I don't think he was very good in this match. That first goal was partially due to a miscommunication between Grav and Szoboszlai. And then you have Florian Wirtz, who's just, I think the less said the better for Florian Wirtz in this performance. He was absolutely horrendous. He was shocking. So yeah, if you're asking me which team was better in the midfield, clearly it's got to be Newcastle for me. Sean Sturr and Lewis Miley vs Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. Clearly it was Sturr and Miley who were the better double pivot all throughout this match in open play. Now, Newcastle do end up playing better for, I think, most of the match. But Liverpool do end up getting the reprieve. And it's not because of any good tactical playing. It's not because they're starting to get into the match. It's simply because Cody Gakpo, who's playing like he's still playing for the Netherlands at the World Cup off of that hot form, he just scores an absolute screamer from 35 yards out. Absolute incredible goal. He bangs it straight to the bottom left corner. You cannot blame Hornacek for that goal whatsoever. No goalkeeper in the world is saving that. And when you're talking about a goal from 35 yards out that no keeper in the world can save, it's an absolute banger. So congrats to Cody Gakpo. He can hold his head up high, but still, man, if you thought that Liverpool was going to get back to that match with this lifeline that Cody Gakpo was handing to them, you are dead, dead wrong. Right after that, again, I have to give more credit to Jasla because he has two strikers, Voltemade, who didn't play today, and Johan Wissa, who are just horrible right now. They're on terrible form. They can't finish. And so what do you do when you have a striker who can't score? Don't play him as a striker. And Johan Wissa in this number 10 role, I think was much, much better. His playmaking was brilliant at times. He makes that pass, of course, to Joe Willock for that immediate that immediate response for Newcastle. Just 2 minutes after Liverpool get their equalizer, Joe Willock, off of that pass by Johan Wissa, gets the lead back for Newcastle. So Wissa still missed two horrific chances. I think Wissa easily could have had a brace in this match, and that would have won Newcastle the game, but at least he's contributing something to the offense, which, as sad as it is to say if you're a Newcastle fan, I mean, that is progress. He is doing better now than he did under Eddie Howe. That is for sure. But yeah, really, really unfortunate for Newcastle to yet again be dropping points to Liverpool off of a last-minute goal. At least this time it's a last-minute equalizer, not a last-minute winner. But I won't say it was robbed, because, Lewis Hall, it was definitely a penalty on the foul laid on, where he fouls Victor Munoz. But it was also a smash and grab for Liverpool, where, again, Newcastle were clearly the better team here. You end up getting Lewis Hall, who, unfortunately for him, I think he actually played quite well in this match, but now his performance is going to be overshadowed by that penalty conceded at the end. And Amar Dedic as well, who, for whatever reason, he's getting very low ratings on all of the sort of apps, but I think he was quite solid as well. He is sort of an emergency starter because of the Tino Livramento injury, and despite him being a new signing as well, he did not look out of place one bit in that backline for Newcastle. So, look, maybe I'm being too harsh on Liverpool. Maybe I'm being too nice to Newcastle, given it was a draw. But I think it is very difficult, despite what the XG might say, that it's very hard to make the case that Newcastle weren't the better side in this match. And I think even Liverpool fans will agree with me that they are lucky that they're coming away with even a point with this result. But yeah, There is one more match that happened in this first match week of the Premier League. It was the Monday Night Football, where Fulham, in the first London derby of the season, hosted Chelsea, ultimately losing out 2-3 against Chelsea in this match. And first off, I think this was an eye-opening experiment, or eye-opening experience, rather, to how the rest of the season is going to go for Chelsea. Because when you see a team playing fluid offense, 38% possession, you see Maxence Lacroix playing as a right winger, absolute dime of an assist to Morgan Rogers. When you're seeing a team say, fuck positions, we're just going to play fluid football, there's only one manager who could possibly be leading a team like this. It is, of course, the one and only Xabi Alonso with his free-flowing football system. It's already here. And I'll be saying this, I know it's a little early, I know we're only one match in, but I think there's a case to be made that this is the most fluid, the most aesthetically pleasing football that we've seen from anybody in the Premier League since prime Jurgen Klopp Liverpool. Because out there, bro, Pedro, Palmer, Morgan Rogers, they were out there playing like prime Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Tell me I'm wrong. That's, I swear, what I was seeing out there on the pitch for Chelsea today. You end up having, part of it was Calvin Bassey and Jorge Quenda were absolutely terrible, or Quensa were absolutely terrible on the back line for Fulham, but it was brilliant from the front three there, right? Cole Palmer in particular was absolutely amazing. He gets, 1 minute, he's playing on the right side, dribbling past 4 Fulham defenders. Then, next possession, a minute later, he's making an overlapping run on the left side to score a goal off of a pass from Morgan Rogers. Then a minute afterwards, he's playing defense and dribbling the ball without a care in the world deep in Chelsea's own half. He's getting a level of freedom that, if Enzo Maresca saw this and he was still managing Chelsea, he'd have a heart attack with all the freedom Palmer was getting. But this is the freedom he gets under Xabi Alonso. I thought that Cole Palmer was going to have a resurgence this season, because he's having a lot more freedom now, and we're really seeing that, I think, in this first match for Chelsea. And yeah, that whole front three, I believe was it Joao Pedro or Morgan Rogers? One of them had an assist and a goal as well, and then the other one got a goal, so very good from the front three overall. But at the same time, there are still definitely some real concerns for Chelsea. One, Cole Palmer gets a knock late on in this match, and I'm not sure if he's going to really be out or if it's just a small thing, but if he does end up being out, that is going to be a big loss for Chelsea, especially with how good he was today. But the biggest sort of concern for me, it's got to be the back three. And not just the back three, but the defense in general, including Robert Sanchez in net, because holy hell, that was absolutely terrible by Robert Sanchez. He drops an absolute howler. Both goals completely preventable in this match. He probably should have saved the Josh King shot, and he probably shouldn't have parried the shot for that second goal either. And yeah, he was absolutely terrible. I know that a lot of Chelsea fans have been dogging on him for this performance, and fair enough. And it's not like this is a one-time thing. Robert Sanchez has been a pretty terrible goalkeeper for Chelsea at stretches of the last few seasons, really. And listen, I'm not a Chelsea fan. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but me personally, with the way that he was playing out there, I would say, honestly, give Mike Penders a start. Just chuck him in there, see how he does, right? Because it can't get much worse. And also in the back three, I think that, look, Josh Ashampong absolutely found out. He got beaten a few times by various Fulham players, and had Fulham taken their chances better, this could have led to Fulham scoring a third goal, scoring a few goals of their own, and not just being, freebies given by Robert Sanchez. And if that were what happened instead, maybe Fulham go out and get a point here. Now, it's not the end of the world if you're a Chelsea fan, because obviously Wesley Fofana is suspended right now. Hopefully he'll come back. Maybe you'll be getting more solidity from sort of Caicedo, who's injured right now, from Enzo Fernandez, who didn't play a full 90 today. So one should expect that the backline will get better as the season goes on. But yeah, there was one side of the pitch, hugely positive for Chelsea. The other side, absolutely terrible, absolutely trash. But about Fulham, yes, it is 3-2. The scoreline doesn't look bad on paper. But again, I don't think they performed particularly well on their own. It was, again, just chances gifted to them by Robert Sanchez. And I think Arbeloa, honestly, just got it completely wrong against this Chelsea side. I understand this is partially just due to how Xabi Alonso plays. You are going to have to end up sort of having the possession. But it felt that, especially that double pivot, of Sander Berge and Alex Iwobi, they were at times being way too they were being way too free. They were not sitting deep enough, and it just allowed Chelsea to spring into action and have basically the entire center of the pitch to themselves whenever they were in space. This is a common error that like big clubs have, and Fulham, you guys do not have the capacity to be playing like this, to be playing so aggressively. To be fair, Cesar Palacios, Oscar Bob, I think they were quite solid in this match. If they took their chances better, if Josh King took his chances a little bit better, if even Jade Robinson, he had a chance late on 1v1 against Robert Sanchez where he's not able to sort of, lob the ball properly. Again, if they take these chances better, it could have been 3-3, but I still don't think that Arbeloa has fully figured out this tactical system for Fulham yet. And with the good there that is to be played, that is especially playing long balls to bypass Chelsea's defense and trying to catch their defense off guard, there are also issues of their own, right? Like I said earlier, I don't think that their back four was particularly good, especially not the center backs. And there are still a lot of question marks. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but I did have Fulham as a team getting relegated. And with this performance, yes, they scored 2 goals. I'm not feeling much better about Fulham, to be quite honest, after this match, where, again, their 2 goals are gifted on a silver platter by Robert Sanchez. But yeah, that's going to be all from me this week. If you stuck around to the end and you want to see more weekly Prem reviews, predictions, just more genuine football content in general, please consider giving me a sub and commenting your takeaways. We will be back with another set of predictions with me and my co-host Swapnil later on in the week. But until then, see ya.